everyone, and welcome to Candid Conversations. I'm your host, LaDwanya Roberts, and today's topic is something that I'm truly passionate about. I'm so excited, but we're going to be talking about financial literacy and how to make some smart money moves. I have with us two guests that are going to bring a wealth of knowledge to the table today. We have Mr. Ranauldo Wright. He is, I like to say, a financial coach, financial advisor. He is just so smart and he breaks things down so easily that an 8-year-old will understand. Like, seriously. My husband and I met with him this summer and my mind was just blown and I was just like, oh my goodness, had I known this, when I was 14 years old, like start early, I would be in such a much better place, but it's never too late to learn. So I'm truly excited that Ranauldo has decided to join us today. He's accepted the invitation. We also have Miss Kenecia Mosley now. Kenecia is my friend and y'all have seen her before. She was on the episode when we were talking about COVID. So yes, she is a nurse, but she is passionate about investing and making smart money moves. And this show was actually her idea. So I was like, yeah, let's do it, because I'm totally into managing my money. I've learned to be a good steward over my money, like every dime. I consciously am aware of how I'm spending it, where I'm spending it. I personally check my account almost every day. Okay. And I'm just excited that I'm able to bring this information to my viewers. And I definitely want people to share this show with everyone, especially the youth. Your cousins, your nephews, your nieces, teenagers, young adults, just get this information out there because it's going to be good. It's going to be helpful. And, no one wants to be broke. That's not cute. That's not fun. So this show is going to show you how not to be broke. Okay. So we're going to start off with Ranauldo. I want to ask you about credit cards. Okay. Credit card care. Credit cards, they're not a bad thing, but give us a few helpful tips on how to use credit cards, how not to use credit cards, how not to fall into a credit card crisis, and how this interest rate works.
So I think that credit is a good place to start, because when you look at the concept of credit and what credit means, your credit score, the amount of credit that you're allowed to have, a lot of it has to do with your ability to keep your word. Now, I know that might be looked at in a funny way when you say it like that, but your credit score is typically tied directly to your ability to make a decision financially and keep your word according to that decision. So if you go and tell someone, hey, can I borrow X amount of dollars, whether that's in a credit card, a credit line, or, a loan of any type, you're telling them, if you will pay this for me, I will pay you back at this pace or rate or whatever it is that's predetermined. If you don't uphold your part of the bargain, a lot of times that is damaging to your credit score. So it's basically the way that companies, in a sense, will find out whether or not you are typically good for your word or not when it comes to business transactions of that sort. But credit cards, I would say that when it comes to credit, you want to be conscious that credit cards can be a major help for you or a major problem, depending on how they're used. So if you're the type of person that cannot have enough self-control to use the card and pay it back off, or use the card and keep the balances really, really, really low, then I would say that you minimize your exposure to credit cards. And if you are of the type that thinks that credit cards are not necessary, try living without one. It's not going to necessarily be an easy thing to do. So I say all of that because it's a balancing act with it, but you have to use it for the right things. I always tell people, this pen that I have right here in my hand, it can be used to create powerful things for a creative person who has it in their hands. But a person who's a not a good person can use that same pen to cause a lot of damage. So it's just how it's being used, I think, is the most important thing to understand.
Awesome. How it's being used. And one benefit to a credit card, I want to give people a tangible example of a good reward of credit cards is if you use your credit cards properly, there are rewards offered. A lot of them have good points. You can literally book flights and not pay any cash. You can book hotels, trips, rental car, and not pay any cash. If you use your credit card wisely, there are rewards for being a good steward over that credit card. So a lot of times you see people flying and jet setting and living their best life. Most of the time, they may not be using cash. They could be using their rewards, the benefits that they've earned for holding up their part of the bargain, like Ranauldo said, and they will reward you for good credit card behavior. Is that correct? Kenecia, have you experienced being able to use a credit card that way? I know I have.
Absolutely. I've actually been on both ends of the spectrum with the credit cards, because when I first graduated from college, and in college, you know, they're handing you all these credit cards, and you know, so I got them, but I didn't understand like how to properly use my credit cards. Like I knew I needed to pay it, but as far as making sure I paid it on time, making sure I paid the minimum balance, at least not maxing it out to the limit. So those are things that I had to learn the hard way. I didn't have anyone to really guide me and show me how that worked. And then once I started getting out in the real world and I was trying to get credit, and then I was like, my credit wasn't the best, and I'm like, okay, we're not having this. I started digging in, trying to figure out, how do I fix this? So how do I get my credit back to, you know, up, and get my credit score up, so that when I do want something, I can go get it. So I dug myself out of that hole, and once I learned how to properly manage my credit, never been late again. So now my credit score is excellent. So it's a great feeling when you have a good credit in that history, because now I can go and if I pretty much get whatever I want. And now I do use my credit cards. I actually transitioned to only primarily using my credit cards versus my debit account, just because of what you just said. I use the perks. I travel a lot for work. So one of my cards I have is a Delta Sky Miles card. So I say, okay, the way to build that up and get more points is to spend my money with my credit card versus from my bank account. And then I just turn around and pay it back every month. You know, so I've made that my goal to just pay it off every month so that I don't pay interest. Because that's another thing. I'm like, to me, if I'm paying interest, I'm giving away free money. So I don't like to look at it that way. I want to pay it off. Obviously, if I got in a bind, I know, okay, you know, maybe I need to use that for a moment, and maybe I need a month or two to get myself together. But I know I have that as a backup plan if I had to, but that's not what I rely on. But I use points. I travel a lot with my kids outside of work. And that has helped me tremendously with buying flights to wherever we need to go, or last minute flights. And I can use my Sky Miles because I will accumulate those by, you know, now, like I said, using my credit card versus my debit card from my bank account to help accumulate those points.
And see, so there you have it. So Kenecia and I both, and I'm sure Ranauldo as well, we are living proof that when you do well with your credit cards, you will be rewarded for it. You don't have to pay cash for everything. Use those rewards that you earn from doing well with your card. I wanted to go back to what Ranauldo was saying. The relationship that you have with your credit cards can say a lot about you. So that's why a lot of times when you're trying to get a job, they'll ask you for your social security number because they want to look at your credit score. You know, they want to see if you're paying your bills on time. They want to see if you can keep your word, you know. And if you say, I'm going to pay my credit card off or pay my bill by the 15th of the month, okay, great. And they see that you've been doing that and you have good credit. That means this person may actually show up to work on time. This person may actually come to work every day because they've kept their word with their credit. So maybe they'll keep their word with their job. You know, so that's one of the reasons why they'll ask you for your social security number, just so they could see if you can keep your word. And that's truly important. And another way to use your credit card and how to do that is if they give you a credit card, and let's just start off easy. Say you're in college, and I know my first credit card was Macy's, and it was for $100. And what did I do? I went out and bought some shoes for like $89.99. Okay, so right there, my car was almost maxed out, and I paid $10 here. And then sometimes I was late, and you don't want to do that. So if they give you a credit card limit of $100, you don't want to spend over $50. Keep it under $50. Pay it on time. If you spend $40, pay off $40. Don't give them $5. Don't give them $6. Pay the $40 and be on time. If you do that for a while, they'll increase your amounts, your balance from $100. They'll increase it. They'll give you more. They feel like they could trust you with $100. Okay, let's give her $300. Oh, okay. Now that she has $300 credit limit and she hasn't spent more than $150, let's give her a $500 credit limit. So that's pretty much how that credit card game goes. It's a game, and just play to win. Play to win. Ranauldo, can you explain a little bit how interest can work on a credit card?
Yeah, if you are as you know, both Kenecia and LaDuanya were just talking about paying the card off, you know, before it's actually due, or when it becomes due, it minimizes, if not eliminates, your need to have to pay interest. I'm right on board with what Kenecia was just saying when she said, I don't want to give them extra money. You know, I may want to delay my need to have to pay out of my own account, so I'll use this card, but I don't want to give them more than whatever the item or service that I was purchasing costs. You know, I want to keep it to whatever that cost was. So the way to do that is to get rid of the need for interest by paying it off. But if you're not in position to pay it off at the end of every month, just like, you know, you just heard, you want to minimize the amount that's left on it in relationship to the available balance. You know, so you definitely want to keep that thing below that 50% mark. And I'll tell you, if you keep it below 30%, it actually helps your credit. You know, so keeping it below 50 keeps it from hurting your credit. Below 30% helps your credit. Below 10% makes you look like a very good risk to lenders. You know, so you use the cards for the purchase of, you know, for the purpose of points accumulation, things like that. Anybody with any sense would know that that's like you getting the ability to get rewarded and get things free or get things discounted for you because you've made good decisions up until that point. You know, and credit card companies do that because they know that those are some of the things that will lure you in, you know, to getting it. And sometimes you can get over your head. And if you mess up one or two times, it can cost you greatly. So I would say, you know, when it comes to interest, you want to minimize the amount of interest. The better your credit score is when you're initially starting the credit line, the better the interest rate you'll get. And when you're purchasing things, different rates come at in different methods. So I want you to think, a lot of times people think of interest rate in a sense like they're buying a home. They'll look at an interest rate and think that that's the most important thing when it comes to the home purchase and how the loan works. When I'll tell you, there's two different rates, first of all, that people may not even be aware of. A lot of times you're advertised the APR, but you need to also understand what's called a note rate. You know, so you need to know that there's a difference between the two, and the difference between the two is usually the fee that's being charged to you by the company that's setting it up. So if you note whatever's being advertised to you has a slight difference from what you're actually getting, you want to pay attention to those things. I always say that which the bold print giveth, the fine print can taketh away. So you better be careful for sure. But interest can't hurt you unless you don't use it wisely.
Okay, got it. Okay, so now I want to get into saving and investing. Kenecia, I know this is something I'm so excited about, something you've just started implementing in your personal life, and you've been sharing with your family and your friends, and you wanted to come on Candid Conversations and share with the viewers here. And so can you please break this down to the best way to save, especially not only just for yourself, but for your children? What do you do? Like, is it okay? Am I doing something by having a savings account for my kids in the bank? Or what should I do? What do I do?
Yeah. Well, there's of course lots of different avenues, vehicles that you can use, and it just depends on what your goals are. I think that's the biggest thing. You kind of want to start off with what your goals are, but a savings account, yeah, you want to have access to money in case of an emergency. So I have a regular savings account, but as we know, the interest rates on a savings account that you gain are little to none. I think and then the better interest rates are going to be like with like an online bank. And found, I think right now the one that I have, the interest rate is like 0.5%. So it's less than 1%, and usually a lot lower than that. So I'm like, if I'm going to have my money sitting somewhere, I want to try to make the best of it and allow it to grow more. So I have a certain amount there. So that way, if I need it, I can easily access it. But then the rest of the money, I'm saying, all right, let me figure out a way to make this grow. So I started looking into the stock market and learning like how types of stocks to purchase. And I know there's mutual funds and things of that nature. So I started with the stocks. I know a lot of people kind of got into the stock market last year, especially when we all had time to sit home. It's something that I have been wanting to do for years. And I just never sat down and took the time to learn it. And I'm more hands-on, so I like to know what's happening with my money. I don't like to call somebody and say, okay, can you do this for me? And then just trust them to do it based on what I tell them by me answering some questions. I like to know what's going on. And I said, okay, let me figure this out. So I started out like most people, you're probably hearing people talk about like Robinhood and Webull and things like that. So I did start there and just kind of took it one step at a time. I'm like, okay, let me buy like one stock and let me see what happens if I do this. And then, and then started educating myself on, how the stock market is working. One of the things that I really looked into was dividend stocks, where the stocks will pay you for owning their stocks. So, and the same thing, I had my dad had money put away in a savings account and it's been sitting there for years. And he's old school. So he didn't know how, what you should do with your money and how you can make it grow. And I said, okay, let's move this and put it here so that way you can actually get more gains on your money. So instead of getting $70 a year, we can invest in these dividend stocks, and now you're going to get $5,000 a year just on dividend payments. And trying to pick safe stocks. Of course, we know the market is volatile. So just kind of learning how to research stocks and pick stocks that are safe, learning how to use, there's so many tools that you can use to help you minimize any potential losses, such as like what they call stop loss orders. So you can put an order in, buy a stock, but then you can also, as soon as you buy it, put in an order to sell it if it drops at a certain percentage, whatever you want to put in. That way you can know I'm not going to lose no more than this amount of money. So there's ways to do it safely. Another thing that I did, I'm teaching my kids. So I have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old, and I'm trying to teach them now, like, okay, let's invest. So I've like taken some of their money that we have for savings, and I'm like, let's look up stocks. Let's get into this. So like everybody talked about GameStop lately. My son, he's a gamer, so he even was like, Mom, what's going on with this GameStop stuff? And he's like, I see it on my, and I was explaining it to him, and he was like, oh, okay. So, just starting to engage him in those conversations so to make him aware of what's going on. And I went and opened both of them a custodial brokerage account. So that way money is in there. So I have like a TD Ameritrade account. I've had that for years, never used it the way I should have until last year. And I'm like kicking myself, but I'm like, oh, that's okay. I'm learning now. So went through there and opened both of them a custodial account. And basically it's just a brokerage account that I can control until they turn 18, and then I can turn it over to them. And I'll be teaching them kind of how to use it wisely. And I want them to start investing in those dividend stocks now. Because I just look at it like, okay, if I had been getting dividend stocks and just putting my money into some really good quality stocks over all these years, that's how I'm like, that's additional income I can be, that you get every month. And depending on where you place it, some of it can grow tax-free. So there's so many options, but those are just a couple ways that I've gotten started with investing.
Okay, so really quickly, how would one invest in a dividend stock? Is there a particular website or company? Like, who do you reach out to? So if I left the show today and said, okay, I'm going to open me up some dividend stocks, what do I do? Is it a 1-800 number or what do I do?
Well, the internet is, I would always say use the internet. It's so much information. You can Google, what is a dividend stock? You can start there. Okay. Dividend stocks are going to be just a regular stock, but they're usually from companies that are more well established. So a couple of examples are going to be like Coca-Cola. Like a lot of people know, like Coca-Cola's been around for a very long time, probably not going anywhere. They've been paying dividends for a very long time. What's another one? AT&T. That's another really good dividend stock. So there are stocks you can type in like what are dividend stocks or what are good dividend stocks. There are some dividend stocks where they call dividend aristocrats, dividend kings. These are stocks that have been around for years and continuously quarter after quarter paying dividends and sometimes even increasing their dividend every year. So they have certain requirements in order to be on these lists. So you can start there, and that way you're looking at quality dividend stocks that have been around for a long time. The price of the stock itself typically is not as volatile as some of your newer stocks, like the GameStop we were talking about. That's extremely volatile right now. And then when you look up the stock, when you do the research on the stock, you will look to see, does it pay a dividend? And you can Google it if you don't know. And then once you start learning, you can use apps like CNBC or Yahoo Finance. I usually use my TD Ameritrade account because like the Robinhood account, looking at the dividend payments, it may list it on there, but they're not usually as accurate and up to date. So I typically look at my TD Ameritrade, put in that stock ticker symbol, and then it'll pull up all the information on that first page and info about the company. It tells you what the company's about, and gives you what their market share is, and and it'll list on that page if they pay a dividend and how much they pay. So that's kind of, I think, the basis of just getting started, just being able to just look it up, just Google what is dividend stock, and then you can start from there, and then it'll take off from there.
Okay, perfect. So say I've done that, right? And 10 years pass and my child is getting married and I want to gift him or her, $10,000. And I'm like, okay, I have that dividend stock. Let me just see what's going on over there and see what's in that account. Will I ever have any problems pulling my money out?
No, you sell it. You sell your shares. So you buy shares. And whenever you want access to your money, you just sell those shares. It's just going to take the time to, just like with any electronic transfer, the time that it takes to kind of clear, that's all it's going to take to get it. Once you sell the shares, then, you can usually get that money transferred to your regular bank account or cash it out within a couple days. So just like any normal transaction that you're doing with the bank. So you have that ability to, and again, you can set that stop limit order. So if that stock for whatever reason goes down, you're protecting your gains, and it'll automatically sell for you. Or you can just go in and say, okay, I have 1,000 shares, but I need some cash. So I'm going to sell 100 shares. And then you can take that money out and have access to it.
Got you. Okay.
Now, this is with a regular brokerage account, because then you have areas where if you That's another thing I learned, taking my money from my IRA and moving it into different stocks, mutual funds, things like that. Now, of course, when you're in the IRA, you're not trying to take money out of that account until it's retirement age, otherwise you'll have tax penalties. But as far as just a regular brokerage account, you have pretty much like another bank, like a bank account, really.
Okay. Ranauldo, can you speak to us a little bit about mutual funds? Break that down so that people can understand, like, what's a mutual fund and how does that work, and your, I guess, expertise on saving and investing.
Okay. Well, I think that, the information you were just hearing from Kenecia was really good information, understanding what stocks are. And a lot of times I'll start out having a conversation with a person and I try to speak at a middle school level, especially initially, because I don't know where they are and I don't know their financial aptitude at the time. So I try to start really low, and then I can raise it as high as you want to go. But I will typically start by asking things like, do you know the difference between, say, a stock and a mutual fund? And most people do not. They've heard of both maybe, but I try to keep it real simple, and I'll ask questions like, for example, what's your favorite store in a mall? Or what's your store that you frequent, pretty often? You'll hear answers like landmark answers like Macy's, you'll hear Nordstrom's, you'll hear Publix, you'll hear Walmart, things like that, which are landmark companies, which those same companies are typically falling in line with those dividend yielding stocks. The bigger the company is, the longer they've been around, the more stable they are. A lot of times, the more dividends they'll declare because of the size of the company. That's not 100%, but it's typical. All right. Now, the thing about it is, I'll say, let's say that you wanted to become a partial owner in, say, a Macy's, right? If you were to go and purchase stock in Macy's, you become a partial owner of that company. That means that you have purchased a share or a portion of ownership of that company. Now, if that company does really well, their bottom line is growing, their asset base is growing, everything's looking good and it's going according to plan, they're beating their street numbers, then the value of that stock will increase, all right? If the company is not doing well, if the company is kind of losing things, it's not going well, they're not keeping up with their end of the bargain, then the value can decrease. Your value of your share of the company increases or decreases in equal proportion to the value of the entire company. Now, here's what I always tell people. If you were purchasing stock in Sears or Blockbuster or Mervyn's or Rich's, think about that. Where are all of those companies that I just mentioned? Now, all of those at one point were landmark companies. You could tell someone, I'm going to park by the Rich's and I'll meet you in the mall. Or I'm going to park near where the Blockbuster is and meet you in the mall. Or I'm going to park next to Mervyn's and meet you in the mall. But all those companies are gone now, which tells you just because a company is big and it has a certain, status doesn't make it 100% bulletproof. Unless you're a part of what I like to call that meeting that's going on behind closed doors to know the state of the company financially, then you are taking a risk when you're purchasing stock. Now, it's nothing wrong. Risk is good as long as it's calculated risk. You want to make sure that the risk is what gives you the reward. So I'm a very big proponent. I buy stock myself, but you want to understand the difference between them. So if or when Mervyn's went out of business, when Rich's disappeared, when Blockbuster all of a sudden was gone, if you own shares of that company, your shares, even though you still owned them, were considered worthless because who's going to buy a piece of something that's closed? You see? So that's the stock version versus the mall, the entire mall. When Rich's shut down, did they close the whole mall? No. When Blockbuster shut down, did they shut down the entire plaza? No, they took that store out and replaced it with another store. The mall would be a mutual fund. So a mutual fund is a group of stock or a group of companies that are in a specific fund together that they're going to mutually work together to create a certain outcome. That's what a mutual fund is.
Okay, so mutual fund. So if I invest in a mutual fund, it's like investing in a mall where you have shares of every store that's in the mall. So if one goes, it closes and goes out of business, it's okay because I still have 99 other stores, and then they're going to replace it with another one.
Yep.
I'm good.
So you can participate in the growth of all these different companies. You also are nulling out the risk of risking it all on one company. Now, at the same time, please understand there is a very big difference between Greenbrier Mall and Cumberland Mall. Big difference between Cumberland Mall and Lenox. Difference between Lenox Mall and the Mall of Georgia. Mall of Georgia versus Mall of America. Completely different. So you have to know and understand which mall you're purchasing and for what reason. Also. So not every mall, every time you invest, you're not necessarily looking for the highest return. For every give, there's a take. So when you're dealing with mutual funds, you need to know why I'm investing in that specific fund or that specific mall. Like my office is on Camp Creek Parkway. For example, if I'm on Camp Creek Parkway and my wife calls and says, hey, I need you to bring one, I have a bunch of kids. I need you to bring Ranauldo Jr. A set of shoes really quick. They have to be this color, this size, this type. Well, from my office, the closest mall to me is Greenbrier Mall, which is a place that I can get a pair of shoes of a bunch of different types. Now, that would be a good emergency situation. So Greenbrier Mall might be where I put some money for emergency funds. It's quick access. It's not far from me. It's if you think of the miles between my location and where it is, look at that as time instead of miles. If there's a shorter time frame, that's more of an emergency style account. If there's a longer time frame, it takes me longer to get to Cumberland Mall, but Cumberland Mall or Perimeter Mall are bigger, nicer, have nicer stores. They are more well established, say, than a Greenbrier Mall. I might use those for intermediate account access. Things that are not necessarily right down the road or could pop up at any instant. My wife calling, that was a last minute decision. So that was an emergency. But I can also have things I plan for. If we're getting ready to have an event and we want to find a dress for my daughter Layla's, whatever she's going to, well, we might be able to plan for that event because it has a specific date and time in the not too far off future where we may decide to get her dressed from, say, a Greenbrier Mall, a Lenox Mall, a Perimeter Mall, because they'll have more, more to choose from and better options. And the furthest mall from my office would be, in this sense, the Mall of Georgia. So if the Mall of Georgia takes a longer time frame to get there, that would most likely be where I would put money that's got a longer time frame on it, knowing that I'll get a higher return. So the longer the time frame, the better. But the shorter, you got three basic categories, if I can minimize it. You have conservative, moderate, and aggressive. You don't want to be really aggressive in an emergency fund. Aggressive funds fluctuate a lot. Moderate funds fluctuate, but not as much. Conservative funds fluctuate very little, if at all.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Complete. Got it. Okay. See, good stuff. So lastly, Ranauldo, I do want to ask you about life insurance and this financial table, because he just breaks this down and it makes complete sense. And I just love how he made things just easy for us to understand, and how he just presented this financial table, right? Because how many legs do you need for a table to stand up? You need 4. right? So, although I think he says a better table has 3 legs, but I like 4 legs. But Ranauldo, can you please break down really quick a stable financial table, and then talk a little bit about the importance of life insurance? So we've covered credit cards, we've covered saving and investing. So now I want to talk a little bit about the full scope of your financial table and life insurance.
Absolutely. So when it comes to what I like to call the financial table, I'll say, just like you just said, you know, if you go and look at the typical table, how many legs are there on there? Well, a typical table has 4 legs on it. Now, you can get to the fancier, more expensive tables where somebody says, oh, well, the way mine is designed is this. But I'm saying that a person who has not already established wealth and can afford to get to that level of design, the typical table has 4 legs on it. So if you look at those 4 legs and treat them the same way you would treat the table at home, you understand that each leg has importance, okay? See, if you were inviting a guest by your home and you were missing a leg on your table, on your dinner table, would you have your guests sit at that dinner table for dinner? Of course not.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, because, yeah, I mean, even if you had found a way to kind of prop the table in a corner where the leg that was, you know, the inefficient leg, you know, it was kind of not falling, but you wouldn't necessarily want any pressure in that area of the table. Any area where pressure is applied on a table, if the leg is not there, everything on the table comes down. It doesn't matter how strong the other legs were. You need all 4 in place to feel stable when it comes to your dinner table. Well, the same thing applies when it comes to your financial table. The financial table that you have is, the first leg is short-term savings. Now, this is something that I created, so I hope nobody like watches this and tries to write a book on it, because you'll owe me. All right, but the first leg is short-term savings. So short-term savings is the things that you plan for. This is where you put money for birthdays, holidays, vacations, buying a new this, buying a new car, buying a new motorcycle, you know, the things that you plan on doing. That's the place you put those funds. Now, the second leg is an emergency fund. The emergency fund are for the unplanned events. So the unplanned events are things you didn't see coming. You know, so if I told my kids, like I said, I got a bunch of them, but if I told my kids, hey, we're going to Disney World, and let's say a day or 2 before the vacation is planned, you know, where we're going to be leaving, if the refrigerator breaks down, my 4-year-old, my 2-year-old, my 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 15-year-old, none of the kids want to hear that we can't go to Disney World because the refrigerator broke down. So the funds that take care of those 2 things need to be set separately, if that makes sense. Now, if you have adequate credit and available credit lines, you may be able to take care of that and then worry about picking up the balance of that later. But that's a whole different, you know, talk. But from the sake of having the cash needs to come from 2 separate places: emergency fund, short-term savings. Plan the trip, take care of the emergency, both can still happen without affecting each other. Now, those 2 legs are not places that you put money to look for the money to work for you. One of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is that they are working hard for money and have never been taught or taken the time to learn how to get money to work hard for you. The only way to get wealthy is to have money working for you. You might say, no, you can hit the lottery. That's not wealth, because how are people typically set up a few years after they hit the lottery? See, wealth is, I can't lose it, because it's too many things. I've gained the knowledge of what it takes to earn and hold it. But, you know, that again is another conversation. But the third leg is the long-term investment. The long-term investment is the one that you're looking to get the big returns on. That's the one that's going to take time. I'm going to add to it. I'm going to consistently put money in it so that it builds up to make sure that my retirement or my retirement time is very positive. Let's say it that way. So if you look at it, the first 2 legs act as a barrier or a protective mechanism to protect that third leg. Most people take and start dumping all their money into that retirement leg, that third leg. Biggest mistake you can make. Because when you, just like Kenecia talked about a second ago, if you have to go back into that retirement account and you're not retirement age or of the age where you have eliminated the penalty that happens, then you're going to lose all the gains and then some when you go and touch that money. So you want to have funds that you access outside of that at all times. So those first three legs are very important, but those are the three fundamental accounts that a person needs when they're starting to work on building wealth. Now, the fourth leg is life insurance. No matter how much money you say you're going to start putting away in the emergency fund, no matter how much you're going to start adding to your, your short-term savings or your long-term investment, there's no guarantee that you're going to be here next week. So all of those plans need time to build up and come to the place at which you have the plan for them to get to. The fourth leg makes sure that in the event that you pass away before the wealth is built, that your family gets an instant estate of money. Because all of us save in case we live a long time. But if we don't live a long time, we'd all, I'm sure, if we love our families, want our families to still be in a good financial position. So I gave them to you in order of least important to most important. So if I give it to you this way, it makes it easy to understand from a prioritizing standpoint. If you're not insured as if you're going to die today and you need insurance, and you're not saving as if you're going to live forever, and you're not prepared for those emergencies that may come up, then it's not time to buy that new car, go on that vacation, buy that new, go on that new, buy that new, you fill in the blank.
Right.
So if you prioritize in the right way and all four legs are in place, no matter what area of your life financially pressures applied, you can stand, you can hold it, you'll be fine. There are a lot of people that have that table, in place that we've spoken to make sure that they're stable. And when 2020 hit and the pandemic hit and things were totally thrown out of whack for a lot of families, a lot of our clients and a lot of people that we've spoken to, because they've established those legs on that table, they were able to sit at that table eating well while everybody else was trying to figure out how to prop up what was going on in their life. So I think it's just important that you have all four of those. Now, again, because all tables don't look alike, the more established your table is, if you seem like a really, really big table, the more established your table is, the more legs sometimes are added for reinforcement. All right. So if you start to get established and you have wealth and you have an abundance, the bigger the table, you might need to start adding legs in the center, maybe something called long-term care insurance. You may need things like annuities. You may need things that will help reinforce the size of the table you've established. But typically, when we're talking about at this level of conversation, building wealth, most people are just fine with those first four legs. And if you understand you're only been told half the story, most people struggle financially, not because of their income, but because of what they do with their income. And if you know that you've heard people say you should deal with 10 or save 10% of your income, you haven't been told the whole story. See, that 10% of your income is what should go across the whole table, not one leg. If you're looking at it that way, then you understand, okay, maybe I'm not in position yet to start saving 10% of my income, but the 10% of my income or 15 or 20% of my income, I say 20 as for an established person, that should be spread across all four legs, understanding that each leg at some point will be established to where you don't have to add to it anymore. See, you don't have an emergency fund that you need to keep adding to if you have so much money in it that it covers a certain number of months worth of expenses for you. And because you got to think, if you got $10,000 sitting in an emergency fund or $15,000 sitting in an emergency fund, and you don't live a lavish way where you don't have a lot of expenses, you kind of keep things to a minimum, then $15,000 is a lot of money for the average family to just have sitting in an account like that. But if you get that account to that space, think about all the things that could happen in your life. House burned down, cars are in the garage, families in the house. You wake up, you get your family out safely, you guys got smoke inhalation, you go to the hospital, the doctor who looks over you says you're fine. You don't write that doctor a check for his services. You pay the deductible for the insurance, which typically is around $500 to $1,000. Now, the same thing for those two cars that were in the garage. Both cars are completely totaled. You don't walk onto a dealership and pay a $50,000 check or a $100,000 check for new cars. What you do is pay the deductible. The insurance company takes care of replacing those cars. If it's $500 each, that's another $1,000. If your house total is completely wiped out, you don't write a check to a builder. You write a check to an insurance company, pay the deductible, they rebuild the home. So your entire life can be reestablished with about $2,500. So the most catastrophic thing happens, you lose everything, you put back together for $2,500. That can happen to you 6 times before you run out of $15,000. So your emergency fund doesn't have to be something you're constantly adding to forever. The funds that are going from that emergency fund, once that leg is established, can start being filtered towards that third leg, the long-term investment. And if it's done correctly, those legs are a moving part. It's a moving thing that eventually leads them all to the long-term investment at some point, you know, if you're established correctly. And it starts to build other legs to reinforce as the table gets bigger.
See, I told y'all today's show is going to be amazing, that we're going to learn something, and that, you know, I just really, really hope that you guys took notes, play it back again. Like I said, share it, you know, make sure you send this to the teenagers and the young adults in your family, because this is just stuff that I know that I wish that I learned back when I was 18 years old. Like Kenecia was saying, I was, you know, getting credit cards in college from Express and Macy's, and you know, it's just like, oh my goodness, what did I do? And I had to go through that rebuilding period, you know. And you know, now I could buy, I'm not gonna say anything I want. I don't think I could buy a Bentley, but if I needed a new car right now, I could go out and get a new car. You know, like, it's just really important just to build yourself up to have the good credit, because you can sleep at night. You know, you want to have financial freedom. Seriously, that's the worst thing to do, is just be bogged down with bills and creditors calling you. That's not living. You know, it's very stressful to have people calling your phone all the time, asking for some money. So pay your bills, y'all. Pay it off. Just be smart about your money, manage your money well, and definitely implement some of the things we've learned today into your lives. You know, start Googling about the dividend funds and different things Ranauldo told you. You know, get your life insurance, you know, set that financial table up, you know, be safe and secure, so that you can really fully enjoy your life and just be there for your children. So thank you so much, Ranauldo, for all of your information that you share with us today. Your knowledge and wisdom is just priceless, and I truly appreciate you. Can you please tell us, if people wanted to reach out to you for more help and advice, how would they be able to reach you?
I can be reached in a few different ways. The easiest way to make sure that I don't get a call missed or something like that, I would say would be to email me. You know, you can email me, or I'll even put my cell phone number on here, because, you know, if they call, if I don't pick up, leave a message, I will return the call at some point. And, you know, so my cell phone number, I'll just give it on here, is 678-508-7257. And my email address is rmwright23@yahoo.com. So you can reach me. That's my personal email as well. So that is R as in Ranauldo, M as in man, And then my last name, WRIGHT, the number's 23@yahoo.com.
Okay, or M is in money, somebody money.
There you go.
Okay. Reach out to Ranauldo, okay, if you want to see your money grow. So I just gave you a tagline. There you go.
And I just want to say, people, you don't have to need or want to actually implement something right away. Sometimes I'm available for questions that you may have or direction. A lot of times we are being told or sold things that we don't need, all because we didn't have somebody to call to bounce the idea off of. So, I'm at this point accessible for that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Kenecia. And, I really appreciate you reaching out and bringing this topic to the conversation, because you're not a financial expert, this isn't your career, your trade, but it doesn't mean that you don't manage your money well. It doesn't mean you don't know how to invest, and just be smart about what you're doing with your finances. Is something you're passionate about and something that you're sharing. And I think it's something that we all should do. We should definitely get into investing and saving and just changing the way we manage our money and the way we think about money and the way we think about credit cards and all of that.
It's a mindset.
Yeah, it's really nice.
It's really a mindset, and that's the main reason why I reached out to you, because I'm like, I want us to start changing that mindset for especially like our kids and the generations underneath us, because a lot of it, like part of the reason I didn't start is because you feel like it's a lot. I'm like, oh my God, I don't understand that. It's too overwhelming. And then I'm like, I just want us to be able to put it out there that it's not a lot. It's not overwhelming if you just take it one step at a time. And so that you can make smart decisions, and you can have people to help you along the way. And especially now with the age of the internet, there's no reason why people can't say they don't know anything. And that's what I tell my children all the time. I'm like, y'all lucky. There's no reason why you shouldn't always have straight A's. The internet shows you everything.
It's so easy to get information, right?
So easy. So it's like, and if you don't understand it, then, find someone to help you understand it. Okay. But don't be intimidated by, looking at the stock market and saying, I don't know what those numbers mean. Then try to learn what they mean. You don't have to know everything about it, but just start having a general idea and not allow things like that to intimidate us any further. And just so that we can, make smart decisions, and be a part of the game, because this is a game in the world. And let's get in it and be ready to play.
Absolutely. See, and she said it, a lot of us are intimidated by numbers and finances. Don't be intimidated.
No.
You're intimidated because you don't know, so seek the information, get in the game, play to win. And I just thank you guys again for joining Candid Conversations. And I really, really, really do hope you guys learned something today, so that we can just live well. Thank you guys for joining us on Candid Conversations.
Oh yeah, I'm from the dirty south. See it in Milwaukee, hear it coming out my mouth. Mob town to A-town, you can walk it out. Real shooters, real gangsters, ain't no talk it out. Princess of the